MSNBC says the unsayable, that if you're a man, a real man, you have a problem voting for Kamala Harris. This is going to be about Pennsylvania. Welcome to John Mike Keene. Let's start the car wreck, shall we?
So they still believe they can and will win Pennsylvania, but they feel good about Michigan. They feel good about Wisconsin, relatively good.
There's going to be more qualifiers in this segment than any other time. Relatively good. They feel good about Wisconsin.
Relatively good.
Relatively good is the qualifier.
But in Pennsylvania, they know it's going to be a fight, and it's going to be a fight because she's doing better, much better among women, relatively good, and most young voters, but older white men.
Older white men, not so much. Can't do it with older white men. Here we go. We're going to start. Just make a list for yourself of the people who have a problem voting for Kamala Harris. Number one, older white men.
Just like people thought after Biden left the race, more of a challenge, pulling them to vote against Trump again.
I also like how he won't word it as voting for Kamala Harris. He can't get the older white men to vote against pulling the handle against Trump. They can't stomach pulling it for Kamala Harris.
Yeah, I mean, older white men and actually to younger white men too.
Older white men? Yeah, older white men. Well, actually, younger ones too. Okay, add that to your list. So older white men and younger white men have a problem with Kamala Harris.
Also a bit of a challenge. I mean, that number they'll like a lot, up +5 in Pennsylvania, because you're right. It's the new Ohio. It's the new Florida. It's the state where they see they have the most problems.
Florida, unlike Ohio, full of real men, and real men have a problem with that psycho, bizarre Bond villain, Kamala Harris. We don't speak drunken Hallmark.
And of course, then either the concern or the upside, depending on how you look at this from the Harris campaign's point of view, is that Pennsylvania, Michigan and Wisconsin people think will break the same way. That's what they've done traditionally ever since 1980. I think there's one exception.
And we're going to find out what the men are like in all of these states. How similar are the men? Are they manly men? I believe they are.
And so if they lose Pennsylvania, what would that then mean for Wisconsin and Michigan? If they win Wisconsin and Michigan, does that mean they're going to win Pennsylvania? But that's why they're putting so much resources into that. But it's men.
They have a bit of a problem with men. You know what the problem is? Half of the world are men. 50% of the United States are men. And Kamala Harris has a problem with half of...
I mean, I think the real struggle for the Harris campaign is young men, older men, men of color, white men.
First it was white men, and now it's men of color. What do you call that? And it was older men, and now it's older men and younger men. So hold on, let's get the list straight now. Not just older men have a problem with Kamala Harris, but younger men. Not just younger men, but white men. Not just white men, but black men. It's kind of like men.
Relatively good.
There's a problem with Kamala Harris, and it's not just white men. It's men.
And they are doing all they can. You can see, I think the debate next week will be really interesting to see how Tim Walz reaches out to that group.
Tim Walz, the manliest man in the world, is going to bring all the men back in. The guy who looks like Gene Simmons but lost all his hair. He looks like a bald Ellen DeGeneres prancing around, is going to bring the men back.
Mm-hmm. Doug Emhoff, who I interviewed yesterday, I think we've got a clip of that we can have later on the program. He is making a concerted effort in his own way to reach out to that group. They know that's where they know that's where they have a weakness.
That is 50% of the voters. Guys, this is a huge victory for Trump, because Trump is a man's man. And Kamala Harris, I don't think even male dogs like her. I'm John Mike Keene.